Hello dear colleagues, my name is Lyudmyla Adaryukova and today I will be presenting our problem analysis paper, The Introduction of Ethics into Cybersecurity Curricula by Adaryukova, Bychkov, Merkulova and Skyrda. I'll begin with the outline of my talk. First, there is a problem statement. Then we'll move on to identifying the questions of the research, that is the aim. The next step is a brief overview of the works in the basis of the research. Then comes the biggest part, the answers to the questions asked, that is, the results. And finally, the directions of further research are outlined. Let me start by saying that it's impossible to overestimate the role of information technology in the life of individuals, groups, and countries. Now, when due to recent ill-fated events, an even bigger part of our life has moved into cyberspace, all aspects of life depend on the security of private information there. Or it's even better to say here, taking into account where we are now. And this is the responsibility of cybersecurity specialists. But are they ready for such responsibility? They have to perform their professional duties in the context of rapid technological and technical development and dramatic changes that give rise to unique professional challenges. These challenges are quite often couldn't be even predicted during their professional training at universities. Moreover, the educational system is not that flexible, and it should, but in fact it cannot keep up with the changes in information technologies. The same can be said about formal regulations and legislative support of cybersecurity professionals' activity. This makes cybersecurity graduates feel unprepared and unsupported in some unpredictable professional situations, bringing human factor to the fore. And the way most researchers see it, to help them cope with some challenges that come their way, it is necessary to develop ethical awareness in students, future cybersecurity specialists. And the aims of the present research are to ground the importance of ethics in cybersecurity specialist professional activity and to analyze how this important aspect is embedded in cybersecurity curricula at the international and national levels. To address the questions of the research, we had to examine the national legislative documents to analyze the formal basis for cybersecurity itself and cybersecurity education, as well as works by educationalists on these problems. Works on the international cybersecurity education, joint force as well as individual attempts to identify its state. International attempts at developing cybersecurity curricula to see how much attention is paid to ethics in each case. And international attempts to introduce cybersecurity ethics courses to justify the necessity of ethical education for future cybersecurity specialists. Answering the first question of the research, about the necessity of ethical education for cybersecurity students, we would like to start by saying that cybersecurity specialists are and will always be at the forefront of the major ethical dilemmas that will shape the future society. Still, many don't understand that technology is not value-free. We educate people who are responsible for such information as personal data, browser history, geolocation, and maybe the easiest questions that they will routinely be answering are whether and under what circumstances it is okay to access and or use this information. To say nothing of those problems that at the current moment cannot even be predicted. Maybe there is law to help them identify which is legal and which is not. Let's look at the situation in Ukraine. In 2015, the draft of the Bill of Ukraine on the basis of providing the cybersecurity of Ukraine is proposed. Verkhovna Rada is not very quick to work with this law. Then, in 2017, Ukraine is hit by Petya, which definitely boosts the passing of the corresponding law in 2018. What we have? Outdated content of 2015 bill. Declarative character of the law. Another problem is that although the law presupposes responsibility for violation of some norms, the codes, civil, administrative, criminal, don't mention anything cyber at all. This discrepancy of terminology also adds to the indefinite character of legal frames of the professional activity. And all this, together with rare cases of prosecution, deprive the law of its deterrent value. All above mentioned, do I still have to persuade you that a person in such context must have and exercise some ethical awareness? A non-technological view on cybersecurity by educationalists is a must nowadays. A human factor is the first thing that should be addressed by cybersecurity curricula, helping a young specialist to be confident in the situation when no known practices can be applied precisely. And, however vague the notion ethics is, sometimes this is the only tool that the professionals are left with to solve the problems that cannot be helped by a strict legal framework. Our next step in the current research is to examine how the notion of ethics is reflected in the cybersecurity curricula. The first work to be analyzed is the program by the National Centers of Academic Excellence with the initiative of National Security Agency. Among the non-technical core units is Policy, Legal, Ethics and Compliance, whose intent is to provide students with an understanding of information assurance in context and the rules and guidelines that control them. Yes, it is vital. However, we believe that other aspects should be included as well, because on the one hand, it is really hard to talk about laws and rules with the constantly changing technical platform of cybersecurity, and on the other hand, teaching ethics is not only about learning laws, rules, and knowing your responsibilities. It is more about bringing up some deeper understanding and confidence in the moral dilemmas. Closer to solving these problems, the way we see it, is an optional knowledge unit, Cybersecurity Ethics, which intends to provide students with an understanding of ethics in a cyber context, to examine typical situations where ethical dilemmas arise, and to provide the students with tools for ethical decision-making. The examination of diverse ethical dilemmas, the analysis of practices that can cause ethical conflicts, the understanding of the role of cybersecurity in supporting and encouraging ethics can provide the students with ethic-based decision tools. So we consider this knowledge unit an important element of any cybersecurity program. Another major work to analyze is Cybersecurity Curricula 2017, which is the result of the joint task force of some major associations in the field of computing. It presents the curriculum guidance in cybersecurity education. The authors underline that each cybersecurity curriculum must have a strong emphasis on ethical conduct associated with the field. So, the issues of ethics are incorporated in most knowledge areas. The curricular content for each knowledge area includes the essentials, knowledge units, and the topics. The essentials, according to the authors, across the knowledge areas capture the cybersecurity proficiency that every student needs to achieve regardless of program focus. Cyber ethics is one of the essentials, societal essentials, and also one of the knowledge units within the knowledge area Societal Security, which aims to give students a foundation for both understanding and applying moral reasoning models to addressing current and emerging ethical dilemmas on an individual and group professional level. It also opens the discussion about the unique or general character of ethics in computing, as well as the connection of the national culture and ethical practices. Thus, we can see that cybersecurity ethics is incorporated in all knowledge areas to a greater or lesser extent. The authors make a lot of effort to emphasize the axiological character of this aspect of the student's future professional activity. They claim that teaching ethics is not only about learning rules and codes, it is more about responsibility, values, culture, which should be represented in any cybersecurity program. Now we are moving on to the analysis of cybersecurity educational programs for the national higher education. This specialty, cybersecurity, appeared according to the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers in April 2015. And only 3 years later, in October 2018, the Standard of Higher Education on Specialty 125, Cybersecurity, was approved. Having looked at it, we can state that there is no mentioning of professional cybersecurity ethics or other ethical issues as such. The closest in the understanding of professional ethical behavior, in our opinion, are the following competences: professional competence, Number 1. The ability to use the legislative and normative legal basis, as well as the national and international requirements, practices and standards, with the aim of performing professional activity in the sphere of information and/or cybersecurity with a corresponding learning outcome. However, as we have mentioned above, we believe that the professional activity based on the knowledge of and the ability to use the corresponding laws, requirements, standards, and procedures is not always possible due to the insufficient character of the legislative basis. Then there is general competence number 6, which is the ability to realize the rights and duties of a member of the society, be aware of the values of the civil, free democratic society, and the necessity of its sustainable development, the rule of law, rights and freedoms of the person and citizen of Ukraine. The values of the civil society should definitely be taught. So, to improve the national educational practices, it is necessary to examine the international experience of introducing ethics education into cybersecurity programs. The analysis of several examples of such practices showed that, together with a lot of practical information on some cases, the students are familiarized with basic ethical theories that can help to develop their ethical awareness by viewing their dilemma from different perspectives. The educationalists argue that this will provide deeper understanding of the ethical principles students base their judgments on, as quite often they have only an intuitive understanding of what is right and what is wrong. So, formation of skills and knowledge of ethical reasoning is the first step of a cybersecurity educational program, the second step being the cultivation of dispositions to utilize these skills well. The development of the culture of dialogue and cooperation, the understanding of your own and other people's accountability for the outcomes of any actions, learning from the previous ethical cases, exposure to theoretical and practical ethical issues should ensure the development of a specialist personality and their growth as a community, which are the most important outcomes of any cybersecurity ethics introduction in the curriculum. The priority direction of our further research should be the content of the current cybersecurity ethics programs of foreign educational establishments in order to introduce this aspect into the national cybersecurity curriculum as a separate course or as a part of some other courses. Also, it will be beneficial to trace the presence and place of ethics in the cybersecurity programs of Ukraine. Thank you very much for your attention. Feel free to ask questions.